Welcome, everybody, to The Word on Woodward, presented by Rehmann. I'm Daniela Bruce, soon to be joined by Art Regner and Carly Johnston. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, wherever you are watching the show today. We've got another busy show for you guys. Drew Miller is going to join us shortly, and we've got interviews with John Ogrodnick, Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic, NHL.com's Nick Cotsonika, and Red Wings broadcaster Ken Daniels, and a lot more. But first, we are awaiting the press conference of Marc Staal, a defenseman for the Red Wings that we traded for a couple of weeks ago with the New York Rangers. Let's bring in Art Regner right now. Art, I kind of forgot about the Marc Staal move with all of the excitement of free agency the past few days, and I'm sure fans might have let that one slip their mind as well.
Well, yeah, Daniela, obviously, I mean, this is a veteran present, a left-handed shot. An expiring contract. New York, really wanted to clear some cap space. So this is one of these deals that really benefits the Red Wings. Marc Staal trade deadline, but they could do that and acquire more picks, and plus they get a second-round pick. So this was a good deal for both teams. It'll be interesting to see Marc Staal, a career Ranger, what he has to say. Yet, his brothers have also been moved around the league a little bit. So I'm pretty sure that, it kind of comes with the territory. But, he was a New York Ranger for a really, really long time. And so I think the initial shock maybe now has worn off on him that, that he isn't going to be wearing the Broadway blue anymore, that he's going to be wearing the red and white, the winged wheel. And so I'm eager to hear what he has to say, because I think in the grand scheme of things, if he plays well, and he's a supreme penalty killer, he averaged 15 minutes for the Rangers in a role that was beginning to diminish a little bit, but he's still an effective defenseman. It's an upgrade for the Red Wings, and if Steve can flip him for another draft pick, who knows? Next year's draft, the Red Wings might have 28, 29 draft picks before Steve is done. You never know. But this is a good move, and like I said, I'm eager to see what he has to say.
It's a great move. And like you said, Art, bringing that veteran presence to the Red Wings and the blue line. And we've acquired a couple more defensemen as well in free agency, which of course we will talk a lot about on this show. So really just a lot of improvements in this offseason thus far. And I mean, hey, there could be more to come.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Steve talked yesterday and kind of wrapped up free agency and all that. And I know we're going to get into it a little bit later. I would think at this point, I would say that Steve Yzerman is kind of like on the Iron Throne at this point. He's going to have people coming to him, whether it's a player that might be looking for a deal or an agent.
All right, Art, Marc Staal is ready to go, so I'm going to have to cut in. We're going to go live to Marc Staal right now.
Started in just a moment as we grant recording permission and get a few questions in the chat. All right, our first question is from Helene St. James with the Detroit Free Press.
Hi, Mark. How did the trade evolve on your end? Kind of when did they approach you, and was it hard for you to, move from the only NHL team you've known?
Yeah, I mean, I just got a call. I didn't really have much of a heads up. I kind of just got called, told me I was on my way to Detroit, and yeah, I mean, obviously it's surprising and shocking when it happens. It's, like you said, this is the only place I've been my whole career, and this has been home for me for a very long time. So I think, after the shock of it kind of wore off, and I started thinking about it more as I talked to the coaching staff and Steve and everyone, and that shock kind of turned more into excitement. And obviously we don't know when this thing's going to get going, but I'm excited to get to Detroit and get an opportunity to get a fresh start and play somewhere different. And I think it's going to be great.
And just one follow-up, if I could. What kind of conversations did you have with Steve? And does it mitigate things maybe a little bit that you are going to another?
I mean, yeah, we had a really good talk. Obviously, we talked quickly after the trade, and obviously talking with him makes you feel a lot more comfortable with where the team is heading. And I mean, you're going to an outstanding franchise beautiful new rink. Like you said, it's an original 6. So I get to go from one great franchise to the next, and I'm excited to be a part of that. And like I said, I think it's a pretty good situation that I'm walking into.
Thank you, Mark.
Next question is from Ansar Khan with MLive.
Hi, Mark. How big an adjustment do you think it'll be? For somebody who spent 13 years in one city, not only on the ice, coming to a new team, new system, all that, but just from a personal level off the ice, moving to a new city.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be an adjustment. Definitely. Don't really know what to expect in that matter, but I've played a long time, played with a lot of guys. Coming into a room with a bunch of new guys, it won't be too uncomfortable for me. And I think the family part is probably a lot of question marks as when this thing's going to start and what kind of season we're going to have and all that stuff. So, that's kind of life for everyone right now. So we're kind of just dealing it with as we go, and it'll be no different once I get to Detroit and start playing hockey. It's the same game. They got a great coaching staff and a team that competes and is very detailed, and the hockey part of it, I'm not really too concerned about.
Thank you.
No problem.
Our next question is from Carly Johnston with Red Wings TV.
Hey, Mark, welcome to Hockey Town. Quick question. Just wanted to know, with somewhat of a young blue line and somewhat of a young team overall, are you hoping to bring that experience and veteran leadership and presence to the locker room and to the ice?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the longer you play, the more you rely on in that manner. And I've done that here in New York over the last couple of years with what we've been through with the rebuild, and I think we had the youngest team last year. And I still enjoy coming to the rink and being part of that group. It keeps you young and keeps you excited and enjoying the game. So if I could be relied on in any of those situations, I kind of revel in that now. And yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I want to come in and play well and play hard and help the team win. And, leading that way and by example, if that rubs off on some young guys and how I approach the game and it helps them, then, that's great for everyone.
Thanks so much. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Mark, did you say you talked to any of the players, or was it just Steve and Jeff?
Yeah, I got text from a few texts. Darren Helm reached out, his wife reached out to mine, and a few more guys. So it was good to see that and just kind of exchange some text messages and some welcomes. And so I'm excited to get there and meet those guys and get on the ice whenever that may be. So yeah, I mean, it's it's an exciting place to be right now, I think.
When you I know you're talking about the surprise of it, but is there any part of you that views it kind of as an opportunity for a little bit of a, start fresh situation here? I'm sure it's different going to a new franchise for the first time, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's coming. It's coming to a close in New York, no matter either it was now or at the deadline or in the summer. I could see that kind of window closing for a while now, and getting to go to Detroit, where I'll get a good opportunity to play, and like you said, with a fresh start and a new building, new fan base, I think it'll be really good. And I'm excited for the fresh start. I think bring some new excitement of coming to the rink, and some of that unknown and stuff will be good. Good for me professionally, I'm sure.
And then last thing for me, what have you been doing during this long time off to stay in shape?
Yeah, it took a couple weeks off after we lost there to Carolina, and then I've been probably training for 4 or 5 weeks now out here in Connecticut. So I'm starting to skate again this week to get going, and hopefully, hopefully we start up as soon as possible, and you don't have to train for like 5 months for 30 games or something crazy like that. So we'll see what happens, but I'll be ready to go. I'm excited. I'll be in great shape, and yeah, no problem.
Our next question is from Ted Colton with the Detroit News.
Hey, Mark, welcome to Detroit. You've kind of alluded to it. Like, normally would be what, second or third week into the regular season already. I mean, how difficult is it not knowing when the season's going to begin and what to, when to plan for it or whatnot? Is it kind of tough mentally and just physically? You prepare for it and all?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was harder pre-bubble because that was like a definite unknown. And I mean, obviously we don't know what's going to happen here with the season, but we kind of have a target date of January 1st. So, you can, it might change kind of as you go, but, as far as off ice conditioning, everything like that, we can build up to that date. So I think that's kind of what everyone's doing, and before camp, before then, maybe mid-December, something like that. So that's how I'm treating it. I'm going to do my off ice conditioning like I was starting camp in December 15th. And if it gets pushed or goes earlier, which I don't think is going to happen, but I'll be ready to go. So that's what you do. I mean, you're a professional hockey player. Your job is to keep in shape and be ready to go when the season starts, and that's what I'll do.
All right, so we've heard so much about it. How was life in the bubble, man? I mean, what was it like?
Yeah, it was a bit bizarre. I mean, I was there for 10 days. We lost obviously 3 straight to Carolina, so I wasn't there that long. I mean, I could see how it would get extremely long for the guys that went all the way. That's pretty incredible. So, I mean, they did obviously there was no positive tests. They did a phenomenal job of keeping it safe for everyone involved. And I tried to make give you as much entertainment as possible. We had a golf simulator and ping pong tables and stuff to kind of keep you occupied. But I mean, man, like Tampa and Dallas, to go that long,
It's a long time.
yeah, it's a very long time to be doing that. So, congratulations to those 2 teams. So it was pretty incredible to watch.
You guys kind of showed that a rebuild can, get going and be successful pretty quick. I mean, you think that the foundation is here for that to happen here too, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're ever really too far off from winning. And I wasn't there last year in Detroit, obviously, so I can't speak too much on what's going on with the team. But every time we played them, they're very detailed. They weren't easy to beat by any means, and they just need to get over the hump where success in winning games just becomes regularity. And you're never as far off as you think, and you're never as far off from losing as you think either. So I think they have some very good young players. Obviously I've seen a couple of signs over the last couple of weeks, and I'm coming in there and I'm ready to help this team get better and win games. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens when we start.
With Eric in Buffalo now, it sounds like one way or another you might be playing quite a bit this season. Kind of looking forward to it after all these years and all that still.
Yeah, he's back in the East, so we're all back in the East again. So it should be fun. It's always fun competing against both those guys. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we get to play them. Who knows what the schedule is going to look like? We might not even go to Buffalo or vice versa. So we'll see. But yeah, a lot changing, but it's obviously all very exciting.
Thanks for this, Mark.
Yeah, no problem.
Next question is from Daniela Bruce with the Ward on Woodward.
Hey, Mark. You kind of alluded to it in one of Ted's questions, just that the Red Wings have made quite the splash in free agency. Steve Yzerman seemed to have added some really solid players and filled some holes on this Red Wings team. Did that excite you at all? Were you paying attention to the free agency trends of the Red Wings?
Yeah, so obviously, but I'm part of the organization and going there. So I played with Vladdy. I played with Bobby too as well. Obviously a lot longer ago, or I played against him more or less. I played against him World Juniors and obviously throughout my career with the same draft year. So, and Vladdy's a good player. So yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I think we're making moves to get better, and the optimism is, you get to camp, everyone get on the same page and work hard, and we'll start winning some games. You get some confidence and go from there. So, it's an exciting group to be a part of, and obviously with putting the Red Wings jersey on and a storied franchise, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you, and welcome to Detroit.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And our last question, Mark, will go to Jason Lewis with WJRT.
Hey, Mark, thanks for taking the time today. I will say first, I grew up in New Jersey, northern New Jersey. You're in Connecticut, and that was a little different, but I'm now living in Michigan, so I made the same move as you. It's not as bad as you might think, I promise. Michigan's a lot of fun. But for you, coming from one rebuild and going to the other, what do you feel like you could take maybe from New York's rebuild that you could be here, that maybe they do things a little bit different, or that experience, how much does that help you coming into a situation?
Yeah, I think kind of having gone through it in New York will help me for sure. I mean, we had a lot of success in New York for a lot of years, and that first year going through the rebuild in New York wasn't easy for me, as not used to being in that situation. And now that I have for the last couple of years and seeing where it can go pretty quickly, and we were winning a lot of games last year, and it took maybe a year. So, like I said before, you're never really that far off, and it's just about coming to the rink, believing in the guys and the system that you're playing, and getting some confidence, and then the wins will start to come. So yeah, I think it's something that I'm ready for, and I'm excited to to push this team to get to the next level.
And then one more quick question. Of everything that Steve told you in the conversation you had with him after the trade, what were you most excited about from the things that he said?
I think, like obviously a lot of the conversation was him trying to relieve the shock of what happened, and trying to, to obviously, speak good things about Detroit and the area, which I know pretty well already, and I've known a lot of guys I've played there that speak very highly of Detroit. So that part of it I wasn't really too worried about, and I think the next thing was just the opportunity and to come in and be a big part of the team and play some minutes, and be a guy that's counted upon every night. So I'm looking forward to that responsibility and going in and playing some of my best hockey.
Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Looks like that's all the questions we have for Mark. Thanks to everyone for joining us. And Mark, thanks for your time, and welcome again to Detroit.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
That was Marc Staal, everybody, one of your newest Red Wings defensemen. We're really looking forward to see what he does in the upcoming season. Now we're going to get into our other news for the day and get into the Big Three presented by Chevy. And the number one topic of today's Big Three is Red Wings free agency and everything that they did, Art. So we've got Marc Staal. We acquired him in a trade with the New York Rangers, and in free agency, the Red Wings acquired quite a few, actually. Every position. They've got Bobby Ryan and Vladislav Nemestikov up front, and then John Merrill and Troy Stetcher on the blue line, and of course, Thomas Greiss in net. Art, we're going to talk a lot about free agency on the show today. We've got some guests to talk about it as well. But what did you think overall about what the Red Wings did over the weekend?
Well, I think the Red Wings are a much better team today than they were when we signed off on the word on Woodward on Thursday. If you look at the players that they acquired and Steve's mandate, which is basically not giving out any long-term deals. Bobby Ryan, a year for $1 million. Vladdy is 2 years at $4 million. Troy Stetcher, really, really good pickup. 2 years, $3.4 million. Greiss, 2 years, $7.2 million. And Johnny Merrill, 1 year, $925,000. I mean, this fits his plan. All of these players are good players that maybe on the short-term deal, Steve can move and acquire more picks. Detroit is still in the acquiring more picks mood, but I've got to say, and I'm not saying this lightly, but Steve could end up in the long term, many years from now, he could be a better executive than he was a player, and he was an immortal player. So, I mean, I can't tell you how impressed I have been with the job that Steve has done. Red Wings are better today than they were. That's because of Steve Yzerman.
And it is very exciting. We'll move on to our second topic of the big three. As I mentioned, we are going to talk about free agency throughout today's Word on Woodward with a lot of our guests. So we'll go to number 2, which is some of the press conferences that we've had with these free agents, Carly. They addressed the Detroit sports media over the weekend, and a lot of them had some really great things to say about Detroit.
That's right. A very busy free agency. As we know, we saw the additions of, you were just saying, it's 2 forwards and Namestnikov and Ryan, 2 defensemen and Stetcher and Merrill, and a goalie and Kreis. We heard from these players and Steve Yzerman over the weekend. So I wanted to give a bit of a quick recap, if you will, from some of these pressers. First up, John Merrill is someone that I was very excited to talk with, a Grand Blanc native who is obviously elated to join his hometown team.
As a kid, as a pro hockey player, even, I always told myself if the opportunity to play for the Red Wings ever came up, I would jump at it. And so to see them calling right away today was it was an honor, and it was a really easy decision for me.
I mean, I know we've had a lot of Michigan players on the Red Wings the past couple of years, but that is incredible to play for your hometown team. It's a full circle. But Yzerman also spoke with the media, saying that he's very excited that these hometown guys like Merrill and Namestnikov were so adamant about coming home to play for the Red Wings.
But we're real happy. The local kids, the Detroit kids, I'm glad they want to play for the Red Wings. And, it's, I don't want to say it makes it an easier sell, but guys generally have reasons why they want to play somewhere. And whether it's financial reasons, logistical reasons, family reasons, favorite teams, buddies, there's a lot of different reasons for wanting to play in cities. And the fact that guys want to come back to Michigan and want to play for the Red Wings, I think is a huge advantage for us. And that will help us,
Another player I personally really enjoyed talking to is Bobby Ryan, that we're excited to have. Not a hometown guy, but someone who had blinders on when it came to the free agency weekend. And he made it seem like he really only wanted to wear a winged wheel on his sweater.
While I did still have some other meetings and calls and, back and forth with my agents, my heart just wasn't in it, because I had spoken to Steve first, and, it was a 45-minute call that just, left me with the impression that it was the right fit without knowing what else was out there. It didn't feel like it was going to matter. I knew where I wanted to be based on my conversation and the passion that kind of just comes through for the Red Wings through him is contagious. I left and walked out of the room and told my wife, I think we're signing in Detroit, and that I would go through the process like I'm supposed to with everything else. But after the phone call, I just I didn't feel like I needed to hear anything else from anybody.
Beautiful. You got to love the passion for Hockey Town. I can't wait to see these guys out on the ice to see what they will do with this Red Wings team. Danielle and Art, real quick, who's your favorite addition? No explanation, just name.
Oh my gosh. Carly, you're putting me on the spot here. Okay. I think it's one that we didn't talk about, and it's Namestnikov. I think just his ties also to Detroit. He's got some local ties here as well, and just the player that he is. I'm excited about him, and he has a little bit of a history with Steve Yzerman too. So I'm excited to see him.
I like that. Art, quick.
Thomas Greiss, the goaltender.
I knew it.
Most important position on the ice. Most important position on the ice. They needed him. This is compressed schedule, a lot of back-to-back.
Yeah. Beautiful. Love it. Good answer, guys. I'll catch you guys later.
Thank you, Carly. And Art, she told us no explanation, and we both gave an explanation, so we're not very good at following directions.
They were good and they were quick, so we're good to go.
Thank you, Carly. Respect, though. That's why we did it. When Carly speaks, we listen, and we're going to give our all to you, Carly.
Love it, Art. I'm going to remember that.
Thank you, Carly. We'll see you in a little bit. Let's move on, Art, to number 3 of our big 3 today, and it is the Tigers Play of the Year. What should I call it? A competition. The voting is out there on Twitter right now, and the final 2 are Tyler Alexander's 9 strikeout game or Miguel Cabrera's 2,000th hit. Right now, you're looking at Tyler Alexander. That was one of the best pitching performances I think we saw all season for the Tigers. It was really exciting. And then Miguel Cabrera hitting milestone after milestone right here. You're taking a look at his 2,000th hit as a Detroit Tiger, which is pretty incredible with one organization. So you can still vote for these. You only have a few minutes. Right now is your last chance. Check out the Tigers Twitter account. Art, which one are you voting for?
Well, I'll tell you, both of them are great. You know, one's really an individual historic moment, 9 straight strikeouts. And then Miggy, as you said, is a culmination of his Tigers career. I mean, 2,000 hits in the Old English D. I think I'm going to go with Miggy's 2,000 hits.
I'm with you too, Art, but if you haven't casted your vote yet, make sure you do. And everybody else that's listening, cast that vote. You've only got a few minutes left on the Tigers Twitter. That wraps it up for today's Big 3 presented by Chevy. So a big thank you to Chevy for presenting the Big 3. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new. We still have a lot coming up on today's show. We are going to talk to John Ogrodnick, Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic, NHL.com's Nick Cotsonika, and later Art will sit down with Ken Daniels to talk about the Jamie Daniels Foundation Celebrity Roast and, of course, Red Wings free agency. But right now, we're going to bring in a returning Word on Woodward guest, but he has never been a mailbag guest. So it's time for the mailbag delivered by Little Caesars, and we are now joined by former Red Wing and Art and I's great friend, Drew Miller. Drew, it's so good to see you. I always love seeing our game day live guests on the Word on Woodward.
Yeah, it's great to be back, and as always, Art, your hair's looking fabulous, and Daniela, good to see you.
Well, thank
so my
you.
hair's not
Thank you.
fabulous.
I do appreciate it. I washed it last night, so it's somewhat clean.
Good. That's good.
Perfect.
I'm glad you're cleaning your hair, Art.
Not every 5 days. You know how it is, you know, when you're quarantined.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drew, we're here to talk about hockey, so we'll save Art's hair for later. Your first question, Patrick from Howell asks, the NHL playoffs saw a lot of platooning in net. How many starts do you see Greiss getting in net next season? Remember, Thomas Greiss is one of the free agents that the Red Wings signed over the weekend.
Yeah, so I think, obviously he's stepping into a great opportunity for him to play. And I think Bernier is here and he's very qualified. And I think Art was talking about it earlier is condensed schedule. They're going to play a lot of back-to-backs. You need to have that 2 goalie tandem. So the way I'm thinking how many games he's going to get, well, time will tell. We'll see how he performs and how Blashill and the coaching staff insert him into that schedule that he'll be playing. So I think that they're really going to go with who's hot and who's playing well at the moment. And I think that's how you earn more starts. But I would say right now, just a guess, they're looking at 50-50 and let the hot hand go.
I like it. I know Art is really excited to see Thomas Greiss in a Red Wings uniform. I think he called that one earlier in the year that he would be a Red Wing. So he's taken pride in that one. I'll give him some credit. But we're going to get to your question, Art, which is Tigers related. It is Jonathan from Detroit. And he says, missing Tigers baseball already. And I'm thinking, do the Tigers even need to add a veteran starter, or would they be better with relying on Mize, Skubal, and Manning?
I know we're all excited to see the young pitching prospects. You know, Alex Faedo, throw him in the mix. Manning. I mean, they have a lot of guys. You know, it was very exciting to see, you know, Scooby up and Arthur Mize. And I mean, it was great. But Chris McCoskey said something last week, which we really have to take and really think about. Nobody threw a lot of innings this year because of the pandemic. Even guys like Matt Boyd, they were all Spencer Turnbull. Their innings were limited. So you're going to have a lot of pitchers next year that are going with like 100 innings, you know, not enough. So I guess my point being very, very quickly is that, yes, they're going to need veteran arms. I joke with Chris, they might need 7-8 starters next year because, again, we don't know what the schedule is going to look like. We don't know when it's really going to start. We're all hopeful that camp starts in February and it's a normal 162. But if it is a normal 162, you're going to need guys to eat up innings. You're going to need veteran pitchers. To take a young pitching staff like that and expect them to go from 85 innings to throw near 200 innings, that's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. This is the major leagues. This is the best league in the world. I mean, you're going to have to build up to that. So I think on pitch count alone, definitely the Tigers are going to have to add a couple of veteran starters. And I think there's going to be more. I grew up, there were 4 starters. Now there's 5. Next year, and I'm not exaggerating, there could be 7 starters depending on how this schedule plays out.
Well, we also saw a lot of the piggyback starts this year too, especially with the Tigers, with guys like Michael Fulmer and Daniel Norris.
Well, right, and you know what, and that may be a good way to break in a Manning or a Faedo. Whether they start the game or they come in after the 3rd inning or whatever. I mean, it's going to be interesting. We're in So the way, sports is going to be managed the next couple of seasons until, we get back to the normalcy that we're used to. It's exciting, but there's a lot of unknown out there. But one thing that I do know, the Tigers are going to get some veteran starters.
You heard it here first. Art knows it. Now we'll go back to Drew for another Red Wings related question. Adam from Plymouth asks, the Wings added 2 forwards, 2 defensemen. Which area most improved?
Well, I think that the most improvement area is just the team as a whole. I think that that's what they needed. They needed to upgrade in pretty much every single position, and they want to be competitive. And I think if you talk to the guys on the team and the coaching staff and Stevie, I think the overall consensus is we got to be way better than last year. I think if I had to pick one, I think that goaltending was a big thing last year for the Red Wings, and I think that the goalies are left out to dry a little bit, and it's a tough position when the team's not winning in front of you. And Jimmy Howard, one of my really good friends, and he's someone that I think stepped up in a lot of games that he didn't win. So I don't think that the record showed how Jimmy played, but I think that Grace coming in is going to give the Red Wings to move forward.
Well, Drew, I don't know if you heard Art talking about this earlier, but he says that the Red Wings are a much better team now than they were on Thursday when we completed our Word on Woodward show. Do you agree with that? Do you think the Red Wings did their job in free agency and that they will be better this season?
Yeah, I think so for sure. And I think that you look at the list and someone that really jumps out to me is Bobby Ryan. And I've known Bobby for a long time. When I turned pro and I joined the Portland Pirates with Anaheim's minor league team at the time, me and Bobby Ryan were roommates. So he was my first roommate in the hotel while we were there after his junior season and my college season. So we were there together. So I've known Bobby a long time, and he's a very exciting player. I think that he probably hasn't been himself the last little while here, but I think that what he's going to bring to Detroit is going to be a tremendous amount of offense. He's got that leadership. He's been in a lot of locker rooms. He's been around. So he can help the young guys kind of improve, but he's also going to step in and be someone that can help on the power play and the offense. So I think that overall, yeah, I mean, they've added some really good puck-moving defensemen, and I think that that's where they're going to see the biggest help is you have these guys that have proven in the NHL that they can play, they can defend, and they can move the puck, and these guys can skate as well. So I think that that's something that you're going to see right off the bat, that they're going to come into these games. You're going to see the puck coming from our zone up to our forwards and then moving into the offensive zone a lot more quicker than we have in the past, just because of that experience that we've added.
It's exciting. I can't wait for them to get back on the ice. And hopefully that is on January 1st. We're going to move on to our last question. You guys, you're both going to take a turn at answering this. Art, you go first. Matt from Rochester asks, love the moves that Steve has done, but are the Red Wings done making these moves until training camp?
Well, obviously, the old cliche is you never say never. And like I alluded to earlier before we went to the Marc Staal press conference, by the way, can you tell that Marc Staal played in New York City? I mean, the way that picture was framed, I mean, there is a little bit of chic going on there. Big ups to Marc Staal. Very, very nice. I mean, that was really a good look. That was a good look. No, this is pure Detroit behind me. It doesn't get more Detroit. But with all that said, I think Steve is say that is because unless some unrestricted free agents contact him directly or agents and say, hey, can we work something out? Steve said something yesterday in his press conference, which he said, at this point, we might do another Marc Staal deal, meaning if there's a team out there that needs, because of the salary cap situation, or up against the cap, if they could look towards Detroit to dump a contract of a player, I mean, a player that's still useful, he's just paid, for his current team, Detroit could take on that contract. It's going to be an expiring contract, most likely. Plus, Steve's going to acquire a couple more draft picks, which is exactly what he wants to do. And then again, at the trade deadline, and we're going to be busy. The Word on Woodward show on trade deadline day next year is we might as well be on for like 15 hours because there's going to be a lot of deals. That Steve just signed, chances of you being Red Wings long term, not very good. But he's going to move him. So yes, I think that I definitely think that without question, I think he's done in his mind. But I think, team, you're going to have to approach him. I don't think he's going to go out of his way. I think he likes what he's done. I think he likes this roster. Now he's going to probably try to figure out what they're going to do because he's on that AHL committee started, and trying to, get the NHL season started, trying to, get training camp. Maybe he's going to be part of the movement to expand the rosters if it's compressed the schedule. So I think he has other fish to fry because I think he's done a great job in the draft and obviously free agency right now. Short-term contracts, brought in high-quality players. So at this point, he might make a move or two, but I don't really foresee anything big happening.
All right, Drew, what do you think? Any other moves before training camp?
Well, I'd have to agree with Art. I think that he kind of spelled it out, what Stevie's probably thinking. But I think that, yeah, he's always trying to improve the team. So if something comes up, he's going to pull the trigger and make the move. And I think that cap and teams up against it, that's going to be the one opportunity. And then I think that once you get to training camp, teams have to make decisions on players, and someone might not fit into a certain team. And I think that's where you're going to see him maybe make some moves and pick up some players during preseason, that kind of time, and can make some alterations to the lineup there. But I think he's done a very good job. That he's exceeded my expectations of what he could do that quick to turn it around and team on paper the best opportunity to start next year.
Well, Drew, I hope that they get started pretty soon and we can see you back at Little Caesars Arena. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's always great to see you.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's fun to see you guys, and I'd like to be in person on set on the concourse, but I got my day job here, so being on the Zoom call is pretty easy.
Hopefully soon. And speaking of your day job, if you guys want to see more Drew Miller, which I know that you all do, tune in to Channel 7 tonight during the 8 o'clock news, where they're going to have a feature on Drew's new role with KIG Insurance Agency. So make sure you guys are tuning in again. That's Channel 7 at 8 o'clock. Drew, thank you again. And a big thank you to Little Caesars for delivering us the mailbag right here on the Word on Woodward. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. We are going to continue the free agency talk with Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And today's guest joining us from NHL.com is Nick Cotsonika. Nick, we're going to talk to you, of course, about free agency, but we haven't talked to you about the draft yet either. So a lot of Red Wings news to cover. But first of all, thank you so much for taking.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We love it. We're so glad you could join us. So like I said, a lot to talk about with the Red Wings since the last time we talked to you. You've actually been in the bubble for a while, so you're going to have to tell us about that sometime, but definitely the Red Wings draft. What did you think of the draft class overall?
Well, I'm not a draft expert. You know, I haven't watched all of these guys play, but what's significant to me is that Lucas Raymond, you know, he's the highest pick Red Wings have had since 1990, since they took Keith Primeau. He's the highest European they've ever taken in their history. When you think of all the great Europeans the Detroit Red Wings have had, he's the highest ever from Europe. I know that follows closely, you know, Moritz Seider at number 6 and Philip Zadina, but I think that says something. But, you know, you look at this guy, obvious, lots of skill. He's got lots of hockey sense. He's a competitor. I loved his answer about wanting to win, whether you're rebuilding or peaking. And these are all things I think you're looking for when you're trying to build it. Ultimately here, we're going to talk a lot about Steve Yzerman and his process, but this is the start of it, really. It's finding difference makers. It's finding a core around which you can build. And I think he's got to be a big part of that core.
Nick, we've known each other a long time, and I'm going to do this. I want you to pretend that this apple is a softball, okay? And I'm tossing it towards you right now. If we would have prearranged this, you would have been catching an apple right now, but we didn't.
You got a donut you could
I
toss
just
me
want to
instead?
know, I do have a softball around here. What don't I have in this room? But anyway, but here, I'm tossing it to you. Boom, you caught it. Yeah, there you go, Nick. Yeah. With that said, though, what is your biggest takeaway from the draft and free agency thus far? When you look back at it right now, what really stands out to you?
Well, and I'm going to write this on NHL.com shortly, and I don't want to wave the pom-poms too much, but I think over the last 3 weeks, the Red Wings have generated more reasons for optimism than they have in a long, long time. I think it starts with the Marc Staal trade. I think you see Steve Yzerman make a very, you know, savvy move to use his cap space to get an asset and to get a veteran who plugs a hole. I think then you go to the Tampa Lightning winning the Stanley Cup. It's a team that Yzerman had a big hand in building and also groomed his successor to put it over the top with some more moves. And then I think you look at the draft, you look at Lucas Raymond at number 4, and then you look at lots of picks, lots of skill. And those are all lottery tickets that you hope that they can cash in on some of them. And then you look at the short-term deals that they've done with veterans. What I love, look, let's face it, the Red Wings cannot sell the chance to win the Stanley Cup right now, okay? They're not the Vegas Golden Knights. They're not some of these other teams that have a chance to win the Cup. But what he can sell is opportunity, and what he can sell is Detroit. I think it's significant that he found some players that want to be in Detroit. That helps you land these guys, and it also helps you to have a good atmosphere, enthusiasm, some passion in your dressing room while you're in a transition period. And let's face it, that's what they are, right? When you have a guy like Merrill, who grew up, you know, playing for Little Caesars, going to Joe Louis Arena, wanting to be a Red Wing. When you have Vladislav Nemesnikov, who's Slava Kozlov's nephew, grew up walking around the locker room getting autographs on hockey cards. I think that helps, right? It's not everything, but it helps. It helps bring them in, and it helps create the culture that he wants to have. And he's got lots of flexibility for the future. This is still the early stages, but I think now you're starting to see the plan a little bit more.
We knew that the Red Wings were going to make a move on a goaltender during free agency, and they signed Thomas Greiss. What do you think of the signing, and what do you think playing time will be like for him? Is it 50-50 with Jonathan Bernier?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. Jeff Blash will have to decide that, but Steve Yzerman made it clear that Greiss is going to play a lot. And I think that was one of the big, you know, selling points. I think if and when we do return, I think everyone's expecting a compressed schedule. So we need 2 goalies. You know, I also, you know, I need to look at Jonathan Bernier here. You know, he's signed for 1 more season. Now you've got 2 seasons of Greiss. So, you know, it gives you some flexibility. You've got 1 goalie for 2 years, no matter what happens with Bernier. So let's say Bernier plays well and is traded to a contender. You get an asset. Again, I'm just speculating. You've still got Greiss. You're not tied into anything for too long. it just gives you some different on goal. And, Grice is the kind of goalie I would want to get. Like, I don't know that I want to tie off to a long-term contract for Jacob Markstrom unless I could get him at some crazy number. I would rather right now have short-term deals and flexibility for my future.
Nick, when you look at it, several Red Wing prospects, and I think that this is kind of a trend in the NHL, are playing in Europe right now. But I'm kind of curious, if it is a compressed schedule, if hopefully we get started on January 1st, do you see the NHL expanding rosters, a one-time deal this year only, because they're going to be playing a lot of games in a short period of time?
Yes, I can't with fact, but I'm sure that's being considered, especially if you don't know if the American Hockey League is going to play and how that's going to look. They're going to have to do something, A, to have players ready to step in, and B, to develop those players. So I know all those types of things are being discussed. I love that the Red Wings want these kids to play. I mean, the Red Wings process is really not about this coming season. It's about seasons to come. So I love that they have lots of guys over there playing, and if some of them stay over there and play the whole season, so be it. Whatever is best for their development, wherever they're going to play the most, not just a lot of minutes, but lots of situations, pressure situations. Let them play and figure out what's best for them long term.
We were just also talking about this with Drew Miller, that are the Red Wings going to make any more moves leading up to training camp? What do you think? And do you think there is another place that they need some improvement?
Well, you listen to things around the league and it seems like a real standstill. Vegas Golden Knights GM Kelly McCrimmon, a Michigan alum, sorry, I had to get that in there. He was saying last night that it's pretty much gridlock around the league. There's lots of teams that are either up against the flat cap or up against their internal budgets just because of the economics right now. What's interesting about Steve is he's got lots of cap space, and I think they're willing to spend if it makes sense. So, I know he's still sniffing around at Marc Staal type deals, right, where you can basically use your cap space to get future assets. You got to be careful there because you don't want to eat up all that cap space. It's not infinite. Right. So you want to be careful what you do, but I know he's sniffing around, and I think there are opportunities there if he wants. So I think you look at that first, and then you maybe see if you can do some more bargain shopping, because there's a lot of people who are there are teams in cap trouble. There are free agents now who have no chair. So there may be some deals out there where he can find value right now. I wondered, this is just having fun speculating, like a Marc-Andre Fleury. Would you take him, eat a high, really good assets, and then flip him to Pittsburgh for Moritz, right? And that's just me dreaming. And now the Golden Knights say they're going to keep both goalies for the time being. So apparently that's not going to happen. But I do wonder if that was discussed or thought about at some level.
Nick, we both covered Steve for many, many years as a player. And, I kind of went out on a limb, but I think people know that, Steve and I have mutual respect for each other. We're really tight friends. Eventually, I'm going to get him on this show. I know we keep running out of time, but that's going to happen. But I made this statement.
In studio there with you.
Yeah, yeah.
I want him right there.
Well, you know what? The premixed margaritas would be flowing. But with that said, I seriously, I made this statement, and I can't believe I made it. And I know you've seen him obviously as a player and as an administrator. He could end up being a better executive than he was a player, which is saying something. I'm pretty amazed at the maneuver and his grasp of this situation.
Yeah, that's quite a statement, because he was quite a player. I mean, he was one of the greatest players in NHL history, won 3, championships as a player. I mean, that's a high bar. But yeah, he's good. And we could spend the whole show breaking down what he did in Tampa. And you got to remember what he did in Tampa. He inherited Stamkos and Hedman. He had Saint-Louis and Lecavalier still there as well. So he started in a much better position in Tampa than he started here. He still remade that roster completely. And you look at some of the gems they unearthed in the draft, some of the deals they did. He's a large reason why they ended up winning the Stanley Cup. I think it's still very, very early in Detroit. I think it's a bigger challenge for him in Detroit. But that's what I mean about the last 3 weeks. I think now you can see a little bit of the plan starting to take shape. And I think it's still early. But you know what I about is he doesn't box himself into corners. He doesn't set timelines. He gives himself a lot of flexibility, both in terms of contracts and the roster and in public relations, right? Just setting expectations. And I think he's gotten better as an executive as he's gone along. And I would assume he'll continue to do that. The more experience he has, better he gets. So I've been, I think there's a lot to be encouraged about lately.
All right, Nick, I'm going to take a left turn here and talk about the bubble. You were in the bubble, and you're the first media member that we have had on the Word on Woodward that was in the bubble for the NHL playoffs. I just want to ask you, what was the experience like for you?
Well, I was in the bubble for a week, and then full disclosure, NHL.com ended up withdrawing from the bubble because I think the league that wasn't able to be in the bubble. So it ended up being a shorter stay anticipated. But it was surreal. Really what hit you in the face were just the amazing protocols that they had in place and how strict they were. For example, to get to the bubble, for me, living in the Detroit area, I had to rent a car, have documentation across the border at the Ambassador Bridge. And once I crossed the border, I was not allowed to stop, not in those wonderful rest areas along the 401, until I got to the fence surrounding the Royal York Hotel in Toronto. I get out of my rental car, I get my bags. Somebody, from the rental car company waved to me, got in the car. I walked in the fence, and that was it, right? I couldn't leave the fenced perimeter. I had to test negative 3 times before I left. I had to get the nasal swabs every day when I was there, just like everybody else. And you walk in, and then everybody's wearing a mask. They're socially distant. You had a phone app that you had to fill out a questionnaire and get your temperature every 12 hours to move around. And really, that was the success of the bubble, was the fact that everybody bought into those safety protocols from beginning to end. And that's the reason for all those. It was everybody was in it together. And it was all about not wanting to be the person who screwed it up for everybody else and for the league. So I really think it's truly important, especially for the people who were there for a long time, 2 months or more.
Hey, Nick, wait, so when you enter Canada and you're getting on the 401, you couldn't stop. You had to wait until you got into a fenced-in area?
Wow.
That's correct. Yeah,
okay,
I didn't drink anything before I left.
I was going to say, did you have a bucket or a handy, 2-quart bottle there? I mean, my God,
No
that
problem.
must have been.
I don't want to go too far to this, but I would have been allowed to make a quick rest stop, but I had to have hand sanitizer, wipes, gloves. Like they were not kidding around. And if you're me, okay, I'm not real important. So I don't want to be the guy who brought COVID-19 into the bubble and derailed the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? So I wasn't going to take that chance. I drove straight there. I didn't stop. I've done that drive many times, so it really wasn't that big.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's very cool that you got to experience that. I know nobody really wanted that to be the situation, but very cool that you got to go, and very impressive that the NHL did pull it off. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Really, really happy to be here, and hope to see you guys in person eventually here.
Yes, very soon. Thank you, Nick. And a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer. Blue Light. We've already done so much on today's show, you guys, but we have a lot more coming up for you. Art is going to talk later with Ken Daniels, and of course, we're going to catch up with John Ogrodnick. But right now, we're going to get into Brush Street Beat, where Cody Stavenhagen joined us earlier today. It's time for Brush Street Beat, presented by our friends at McLaren Healthcare. Today's guest is Cody Stavenhagen, the Tigers beat writer for The Athletic. Cody, thank you so much for taking the time to join us again today.
Yeah, absolutely, Danielle. Anytime.
We're going to talk a little Tigers off season today. And of course, we have to start with what gaping hole we all kind of see with the Tigers and the fact that they need to hire a new manager. And that really could be happening pretty soon. Al Avila really didn't give us much when he said, when his press conference, when he was talking about who he was thinking to hire, it was kind of an all options are on the table kind of thing. When you look at this, is there anybody that you see as a front runner?
Well, yeah, I mean, Al was pretty forthcoming in saying that AJ Hinch and Alex Cora were absolutely candidates. And I think, if nothing else, that tells you that this manager search probably will go on for a little bit longer. Those two guys are suspended as a result of baseball's sign stealing scandal. They won't be available to interview until after the World Series. We've heard some other names. Ken Rosenthal reported Freddie Gonzalez, former Braves and Marlins manager, as a front runner. There, and of course, other whispers out there. George Lombard of the Dodgers. Several other names like that. Break it down. I mean, I think your list starts with Hinch and Cora, and you have to address the baggage from the 2017 Astros and assess, is that really what you want? I think we look at AJ, man, he's a heck of a qualified candidate, a guy who's managed a young team, and kind of built up with them and won the World Series. Background in player development, worked in scouting with the Padres, has worked in a minor league development in the Diamondbacks organization. A wrench got thrown into this thing yesterday, though, when the White Sox fired Rick Renteria. And the White Sox, of course, I think we all know that they're probably a step or two ahead of the Tigers in terms of being ready to contend. So you wonder if suddenly they have first pick. So that might alter your dynamic. Would you turn to an Alex Cora, a guy who also has won the World Series in Boston, but was viewed as a little bit more of a ringleader in that sign stealing scandal? Or would you go just a different direction? Would you go kind of a safer veteran pick in Freddie Gonzalez? Or would you go with an up-and-comer when you see guys like George Lombard, names, a Tiger fan favorite, Don Kelly? I think we do know that this is going to be a pretty exhaustive search. I think the Tigers are going to interview a lot of people. But I think at the end of the day, there are a few experienced names that kind of stand out. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Tigers make a run at one of those names.
Cody, first of all, it's nice to see you. I've got my fingers crossed that the power will not go out today, as it has the last couple of times when we were supposed to talk. But with that said, I'm really kind of curious. You always hear in sports that we have like transitional coaches or managers that when the team's really set to contend, they're going to go for the big name right here. But what I'm kind of interested about, where do you think the Tigers are at this point? Is this going to be another transitional guy, or is Al really want to get the guy that's going to take this team back to the top?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. The timing of this hire is a little strange. I think maybe in an ideal world, Ron Gardenhire manages for another year or two. Guys, you get all the prospects up. They have a year or two of experience under your belt, and then you feel like you're kind of where the White Sox are now, right? Which is ready to win, ready to contend, ready to get in the playoffs. The Tigers, let's be honest, aren't quite there yet. So do you need another bridge type gap? Do you want to hire Freddie Gonzalez for 2 to 3 years and then maybe, bring in someone else after that? Al Avila was in that he wanted kind of the manager of the future, someone who's going to be here not just as a 2 or 3 year stopgap, but a guy who can be looked at as the manager for when this team is ready to contend. At least that's kind of how I took it. And of course, that's kind of how you probably have to sell the job to a candidate. But I think the timing is interesting in that you're a little bit in between, where this is a much more attractive and competitive team than when Ron Gardenhire took over. Quite the White Sox, you're not quite probably where you hope to see the Tigers in 2022, maybe 2023. So in an ideal world, I mean, again, you come back to AJ Hinch. He took over the Astros in 2015 when they were coming off a not very good season, kind of helped build up this young core. They were actually pretty good that year. And then 2 years later, they win the World Series. So I think that's kind of maybe a blueprint You can't quite compare this roster to the 2015 or 16 Astros, but I think that's kind of a blueprint maybe for what you want this managerial hire to look like. A guy who can help groom this roster along in the next couple of years, and then very quickly be ready to contend in the postseason and be considered serious contenders going forward. But it does make for an interesting dynamic. I think one of the good things the Tigers have, even with the White Sox job now open, there aren't many managerial Tigers. So regardless, you should be able to get a quality candidate. But it's a little bit of another factor the Tigers have to consider is it takes a little bit of a unique personality to both manage a young roster and manage a contender, and you kind of want a manager who can do here in the period of a few years.
Let's switch gears here, Cody, and talk a little bit about the instructional league, because while we're waiting for the hire of a manager, that is what is taking place right now. And we got the rosters for the instructional league last week. What is the importance of the instructional league this year compared to other years?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really interesting topic to hit on, because at least as I understand it, instructional leagues have kind of fallen off in popularity in recent years, mostly given the fact, teams don't want to put added stress, added workloads on their young pitchers. So this year, the dynamic's different, of course, because mostly in a competitive setting since March. There are, however, a lot of other dynamics at play in terms of teams are a little bit reluctant to schedule games against opposing clubs right now, especially in the Florida Instructional League where the Tigers play. You have COVID concerns, you have other factors. Health of arms is still another concern because you have guys who haven't played in any sort of organized setting since spring training back in March. As it stands, though, the Tigers do have a tentative schedule that's going to include some games against other clubs. It's going to include some inter-squad games. It's going to include some camp days. It's a pretty important time. The Tigers have 49 players in their camp. That includes guys like Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, who are at the alternate training site. It includes some other young guys not, had real developmental time since March. So this is a chance for the Tigers to see what these guys look like. I mean, the majority of the 2020 draft class will be there. It'll be kind of in action. Some other guys who are going to get a chance to get on the field. It's only a few weeks, but in 2020, it's the best developmental time some of these guys will have all year.
Cody, I know we can talk about the instructional league and there's all kinds of things happening, but let's look at, I know the Tigers need, it looks like a first baseman, a second baseman, a corner outfielder, but maybe one thing we're ignoring because we're so psyched up about the young pitching is the Tigers are going to have to shop for a couple of innings this year. I mean, is that a high priority? Do you think that if you're sitting around and you're thinking, my gosh, the Tigers are getting another couple of starting pitchers, you shouldn't be that surprised?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, Art, and surely something the Tigers front office is still kind of talking about and trying to figure out every day here right now, because there are a lot of questions at play. One is, are we even going to have a 162-game season next year? That's not 100% a given, but if it is, there are a lot of innings you have to address. You're going to have young pitchers like Casey Mize, like Tarek Skubal, probably on extremely limited workloads, and the same is going to go for other guys like Matthew Boyd, like Spencer Turnbull. There are going to be pitchers who are going to say that they're at full strength, that they can throw whatever they threw in 2019, if not more. But in terms of a medical standpoint, that's probably not real responsible. At least you have to be prepared to add a couple more veteran starting pitchers. Now, what kind of tier will the Tigers spend on? That's also tough to know. Are we going to see kind of reclamation projects, veteran guys on minor league deals, or could they shell out a few million for kind of some legit quality starters? I'm not sure of the answer to that question. I think a lot depends on some of these other factors that we touched on briefly. How seriously do the Tigers feel they need starting pitching? Do you bring a guy like Daniel Norris back into the rotation? But at the end of the day, I think every team is going to try to bolster its starting pitching depth. And especially with as much as the Tigers are trying to protect their young arms, we're going to see a couple moves here on the pitching front, and it'll be something teams have to sort through all year long.
Cody, one last question for you. You wrote an article for The Athletic kind of going into each prospect that the Red Wings have and what their update is, I guess that should say. I guess I could say. Riley Green got some really high praise from Dave Littlefield. Do you think he is probably the prospect that we could see in 2021?
The Tigers, yeah, Riley Green, 2021 might be a little bit early when you consider how young this guy is. That said, he's done nothing but impress since the day he was drafted. He lit it up in summer workouts in Detroit. It sounds like he really carried that on in Toledo. When I talked to Dave Littlefield, he gave good reviews about pretty much every player in the system, but there was one guy he was really effusive about, and that was Riley Green. Littlefield said yesterday again that he thinks Green could move fast through the system. We'll see how it goes. I think 2021 is probably a bit early, given the fact this guy's never hit above Class A, and he actually struggled in his brief stint there in Class A. But it'll be interesting to see where the Tigers start him, assuming we have a normal minor league season, which might be assuming a lot. But you could see starting him maybe in Lakeland, moving him up to Erie very quickly, and then if he has a strong year, could he finish that year in Toledo? Or if the Tigers need outfield help and he's really killing it, could he make a surprise debut? I mean, with this kid, you can't rule anything out. He's shown he has star power. He's shown he has elite talent. But one word of caution, as we've learned from other prospects in the Tigers system, hitting is hard. And when you get to the AAA level, the major league level, hitting is really hard. So I don't think that there's a ton of need to rush Riley Green. Maybe 2022 is a better target date. But then again, if he's tearing it up, I mean, this is a kid that has just made it hard to doubt. As much as you say, let's take it slow, let's take caution. Riley Green kind of keeps throwing all that to the wind just by the level of his talent, how well he's performed.
Cody, I tend to get overly excited about these prospects, and I really wanted you to just say, yes, there's a good chance he'll be here. But okay, I'll be patient. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, Cody. We really appreciate it. We will be talking to you very soon. And another thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Breast Street Beat right here on The Word on Woodward. Another thank you to Cody for joining us in just a little bit, you guys. And then we are going to be joined by Ken Daniels live to talk about his celebrity roast and, of course, Red Wings free agency. Right now, we are still going to continue the conversation about Red Wings free agency with Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook. It was such an exciting weekend for the Red Wings. They made a big splash in free agency and signed two defenders in John Merrill and Troy Stecher. And then they also signed two forwards in Bobby Ryan and Vladislav Nemetsnikov. And then, of course, we've got the goalie in Thomas Gray. So a successful free agency for the Red Wings. And we don't know if any moves will be made, but if they weren't, and this was the extent of free agency, I think all Red Wings fans would be pretty happy with what we have acquired. Art, I want to ask you a bit about the local products in Vladislav Nemetsnikov and John Merrill. Very cool that they will be wearing the winged wheel.
Well, yeah, no doubt about it. John Merrill, I'm very, very familiar with. I saw him play all 3 years at Michigan. He is, he's a pretty big defenseman. I think he's 6'2", 6'3", from the area. Obviously, you could tell that, his ties to the area run deep. He always wanted to be a Red Wing. He was wearing, a Wolverine cap when he was addressing the media, I think what John Merrill brings, and what's interesting about this is that they were thinking of a 2-year deal, and it ended up only being a 1-year deal, which I found, who knows? I mean, John Merrill's the type of guy that can play in the league. He was playing for the Vegas Golden Knights. He played pretty well for Vegas. He was originally drafted by New Jersey, but he is a good, stable defenseman, really good on his own end. And now going back to his Michigan days, I remember him having a little bit of an offensive flair to him. I know that when he left Michigan a year early to enter the NHL draft, I know Red Berenson was, a little disappointed just because, he would have had a gigantic senior year. But up here, I mean, I think we all, who grew up here wanting to be hockey players when they were little kids, me included, I mean, it wouldn't have got much better. And especially John Merrill lived the dream playing for Michigan. In my case, that's exactly what I would have wanted to do, and then play for the Red Wings. Now, Vladdy is really interesting because he grew up in the room, so to speak. He was Slava Kozlov's nephew, and Kazi's nephew. And, he seemed to have a sense of, and I didn't really know this until Nemetsnikov had his press conference, that he still lives in the area. He's worked out with the Red Wings, the core Red Wings who stay in the area, and other NHLers for the last 10 years. So I don't think it was that difficult of a sell, especially when Steve drafted him in Tampa. And obviously, if Steve is reacquiring him, and there is something about him that he likes. He sees something there. He signed him for 2 years at $4 million. But again, I think that I think Vladdy understands what it means to be a Red Wing. He remembers the Red Wing teams being great. His uncle played on Stanley Cup winners. So I think when you all take it into the whole context, Merrill and Vladdy both know the history of the Red Wings, what it means to be a Red Wing. They grew up Red Wing fans, and they want to be here. That's very, very important. So, we can talk about, stats and what they bring, but what they bring is a pride in the city, a pride in the state, and a pride especially in that jersey. And that's very, very important when your team is in a rebuilding mode, because, as Nick Cotsonika so aptly put, they're not going to win the Stanley Cup next year. I mean, God, we'd love them to, but they're not. Yet you need to be competitive. They need to be more competitive. I'm telling you, nobody was more hurt and more inside than Yzerman when he, team went 17 games. I mean, that's not good. So I think to surround yourself with people, and don't forget, Bobby Ryan played for Honeybake at least a year. He brought that up too. So he kind of has a familiarity with Detroit. So the way I look at it, getting local guys that want to be here, half the battle, and they're all good quality NHLers. So welcome to Detroit, fellas. Can't wait to see you perform in the old red and white.
And Carly, Art touched on it a little bit, but Bobby Ryan and Vladislav Nemetsnikov have ties to some current teammates of the Detroit Red Wings.
Well, Nemetsnikov and Bobby Ryan were teammates in Ottawa, so they've played together. And then we have Torrey Stetcher, Sam Gagne, and Alex Biega. Gagne and Biega, as we know, are current Red Wings players. All played together in Vancouver. Merrill played, of course, we know, at the University of Michigan, as Art's been saying, all stream long, alongside Luke Glendening. What I like about all these connections, though, is the fact that these players know how their former and then now current teammates play, how they grind, etc., how they're in the locker room. So that gives these guys a good opportunity to get a jump start to gel well with the Red Wings team, which is something that can take a while to do when a player goes to a new city. So I think all these connections are beneficial to the team. But Daniela, one player that we didn't mention, and between Art and I, Thomas Greiss and net. So what can we expect from him?
Definitely. And that's huge, Carly. And like I said earlier, Art called that. I think he knew that Thomas Greiss was going to be a Red Wing. I don't know where he gets his inside information, but maybe we should start listening to Art a little bit more. So Thomas Greiss is officially a Red Wing, and he played well in New York, but he's going to get a lot of playing time here. He's one of the best on shootouts as well, which is very cool to have a goaltender that can do that. But I think he's a veteran goalie, and we needed a short contract. He got a 2-year deal. And then you have Jonathan Bernier as well, who has 1 year left on his deal. So we'll see what happens with both of these goaltenders. But my prediction would be that they're going to split time this season. And I think Drew Miller alluded to it, that obviously you're going to ride the hot hand when you get into the middle of the season. But I think to start off, you're going to see equal amounts between Jonathan Bernier and Thomas Greiss. So great addition for the Red Wings. And I also in free agency. And I know Art's itching to talk about this one because Torrey Krug's name was mentioned on the show quite a bit leading up to free agency. And I'm sorry, Art, he's not a Red Wing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised because when we did bring him up, and if he did hit free agency, I'm sure Detroit reached out to him, just to see what his interest is. Obviously, being a local product, Michigan State, and certainly. With that said, the one thing that, always played in the back of my mind is that, he's 28, 29 years old. would he want to come to a rebuild, even though it's his hometown team and a team that he grew up loving, or would he still want to compete for the Stanley Cup? And, at the end of the day, it came down to he wants to win the Stanley Cup, and he went to the St. Louis Blues. I think Alex Pietrangelo was a little bit stunned that St. Louis just went out and bam, just did it right away. On the first day, he was the first big name to go, Torrey Krug. And I think it threw, Pietrangelo landed fine in Vegas, by the way. But I think that kind of threw him for a loop. I thought the most interesting thing that Krug said was that he said, I had an offer from Boston. They pulled it, and I never got an offer again for the whole season. I mean, if you want your player to feel good about themselves in their situation, I would open up some sort of communication. But, you could tell that, and he even said, and I really thought this was insightful. Look, usually you don't talk about this stuff, but and all the Boston media said, that's Torrey Krug, he wears his emotions or his heart on his sleeve. He came right out and said, it's not so much that I wanted to go to St. Louis, and he didn't quite say it that way. You never say it that way. I would have liked to stay in Boston, but they never gave me a deal. I mean, I thought that was really, really surprising.
It is surprising, Art. And you mentioned Alex Pietrangelo briefly, who got another big deal. He signed for 7 years at $8.8 million a year with your Vegas Golden Knights. I have to ask you, Art, does that make them better? Are they still your team? Are you going to pick them to win the Cup next year too?
Well, out west, I think I'm always going to favor them, but the Kraken are going to be there too, depending on what that Kraken uniform really looks like. I'm really shallow that way. I like the Golden Knights uniform, so I'm picking them. I used to be a big Kings fan when they had the purple and the gold. This black thing, I'm not a big fan of. But Pietrangelo is probably one of the best defensemen, in the league. He's going to be making a lot of money. They had to trade Nate Schmidt, though, who was also a pretty good defenseman. But look, everything Vegas does, no pun intended, seems to turn to gold. And so, George McPhee, Kelly McCrimmon, those guys know what they're doing. I mean, so, I like that move. They're definitely a contender.
Another player that we were talking about with an interesting situation was Taylor Hall.
Oh, yeah. 1 year in dollars. So first off, let's do some math. Let's talk about that. Sabres salary cap is a little beyond $80 million, meaning that Hall is getting 10% of the team's salary in a year. I mean, that's a lot. The Sabres, though, they've not been to the playoffs since the 2010-2011 NHL season. So that's 9 seasons since they've been in the playoffs. So I feel like they're very desperate for an elite player, elite goal scorer that could make them hopefully playoff bound. I mean, hopefully at least for $8 million. Hall played for the Sabres' current head coach, Ralph Krueger, in Edmonton back in the 2012-13 season. So Krueger already knows what this kid can do. You wonder if he had any say in this acquisition. So he definitely has big shoes to fill. I mean, let's hope he'll really live up to that contract. $8 million, it's not a cheap acquisition. But fun fact, I didn't know this. Art, you probably did. But Taylor Hall's first NHL point that came in his second NHL game, our very own Sean Horkoff actually redirected Hall's shot in front of the net. So it was Horkoff's goal and Hall's assist. It was his first NHL career point, So I thought that was very interesting. Anywho, yes, really, really hoping that Taylor Hall lives up to that contract because that's a big one. We're only a year. But Danielle, as you were saying, there are still some big names out on the market right now.
There's quite the list, actually, Carly. I know Nick Cotsonika was saying that he's hearing there's. You've got Ilya Kovalchuk, Mike Hoffman, Anthony Duclair, and Tyler Johnson all still out there. So you're assuming that these guys are going to get deals done soon. I would think they definitely want to know what their future is going to look like and where they are going to be playing. I want to say one thing about that Taylor Hall deal that's really interesting is that it's 1 year, $8 million. So 1 year, you got to think if it's not working out for him, that's a trade maybe or two. So I don't know. It's going to be. He's a very very interesting situation, and we will definitely have to talk about that again moving forward. But right now we've got to wrap up Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet Sportsbook, an official gaming partner of the Detroit Tigers. Download the app and follow PointsBet USA on social media for more information. Carly, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a long time, and this segment usually happens much earlier in the show. So I'm really excited to see what's going on in the social media world today.
Oh, well, today is all Red Wings. First, we're going to start off. I know this is something we've been talking about for a while now since we added Nemesnikov to the Detroit Red Wings organization. This is something I know Art was mentioning earlier, but we know Nemesnikov is Slava Kozlov's nephew. So it was really cool that he posted this actually on his own Twitter, and then the Red Wings reposted it. He said, child excited to join the Red Wings organization. That's very cool. There's a picture of him and his uncle there. Very, very excited to have him on board. And then another acquisition, we got Bobby Ryan, and we heard a bit of a bite from his presser earlier when we did the breakdown of the pressers over the weekend. But there is one thing that he said that I really wanted to add, but felt I'd keep it in here to make it its own little post. So check out what Bobby Ryan had to say about his daughter when he told her that he was to Detroit.
My daughter found out that there's free pepperoni pizza, and major selling point. Major selling point. So it's got a lot. My 4-year-old is like, there's free pizza, we're in.
Free pizza, we're in. Little Caesars Arena is probably where she got it. So pizza, Bobby Ryan's daughter. We got a full hot and ready for you, waiting for when we can finally all get back to the arena. But until then, you guys, make sure you're sending in your questions. # Let's Socialize or # Word on Woodward, and I will find them and we will answer them later on in the show.
You know, Carly, we're going to have to figure out where they're getting this free pizza, because I don't know if I've gotten any free Little Caesars pizza yet. I'm going to have to take her up on that, follow her around and figure out where she's getting it, because that would be a major selling point for me as well. So I don't blame her. I'd be super excited about the pizza too. And you guys, we have talked to Drew Miller, a former Red Wing, and Carly Johnston caught up with another former Red Wing earlier this week.
That's right. It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. And today I'm joined by Red Wings alum, John Ogrodnick. How's it going, John? It's been a minute since I've last seen you.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? It's things are going well. Like, you know, we talked about earlier, I'm in upstate New York, actually, right now off of Lake George. And ironically, this is where I began my career. I spent 3 months. So it's kind of a second home for us. We come out to visit the in-laws, and we really enjoyed out here.
Well, a little bit of a full circle there for you. Glad you're enjoying this downtime. All right.
Yeah.
So as we saw, the Detroit Red Wings have added and subtracted a number of players over the past week or so, led by Steve Yzerman, of course. So I wanted to get your opinion. Let's start out with the draft. The Wings selected a Swedish winger at 4th overall with Lucas Rehmann. How do you feel about that pick?
Well, I guess you got to go with, the scouts. And, I was listening a little bit of what Chris Draper had to say, and he said he watched him a few times playing some games. And Draper thinks I believe he has the skill levels. And even when he was with the men's league and he wasn't logging a lot of ice time, but Carly, it's a gamble. All the scouts will tell you. I mean, these kids are young. They're 18 years old. I mean, it's not easy. My draft year, you had to be turning 20. And even at 20, there was a lot of first rounders that didn't make it. So, they see some skills in Lucas, and they hope that he continues to develop and acclimates himself to each level. As he gets older, he's going to be playing with bigger and stronger guys, and that's the key, whether they can acclimate themselves to the next level. Because I remember kids or guys in my draft year, Perry Turnbull. He 70 goals in junior hockey, and big tough left winger, but he had a good NHL career, but he didn't turn out to be that's looking for, because he just didn't quite develop to the NHL, level of hockey. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Lucas. I mean, it's young, but that's what they need. They need offense, they need skill, and obviously the Red Wings felt that was the best player that was available to them and what they needed. Getting the 4th overall pick, which I guess we can talk about that 4th overall pick and the system, but we won't get into that today.
We'll get into that another time. But not
Yeah.
only was there Lucas Raymond from Sweden, we had two other players that the Red Wings drafted. It seems that the team has had a bit of a good luck roll with Swedish players here. What do you think?
You know what? They're skilled hockey players. There's no question about it. I mean, the game's changed a lot. You know, there's a lot of great skilled hockey players, obviously in the North American leagues here also, and we'll see what happens. Again, you know what? They're young and they're skilled, and we'll see what happens if they're able to develop. And it's a building process. You know, with Steve Eisner. You know, ironically, when he came to Detroit back in 82 or 83, we were struggling back then, and now he's come back to Detroit here in 2019, 2020, and the Red Wings have kind of made a full circle. You know, where they had some fantastic seasons, winning 4 Stanley Cups. Now to at that stage right now where it's back into rebuilding, pretty much what Jimmy Devellano had to do back in 1982, starting off with Steve Yzerman. So, you know, when a GM takes over, you know what, they hope to have some sort of a contender within 5 years, and that's what we're going to find out here over the next 2-3 years. How the 2019 draft kids are working out, how the 2020 draft kids are working out. And you hope you have a surprise there. Even a late round pick, you hope you have a surprise. Hopefully you have a Zetterberg or Datsyuk, they were late round draft picks that turned out to be fantastic surprises.
I know you touched on this a bit, the free agency. Let's run through a few of the players that we got. The Red Wings acquired 2 forwards, Vladimir Nemesnikov and Bobby Ryan, and 2 defensemen in Troy Stetcher and John Merrill, as you were talking about, and a goalie in Thomas Greiss, because we saw the Red Wings did not re-sign Jimmy Howard. So do you think that these are moves that will make an immediate impact on the Red Wings team?
Yeah, I think they will. You know what? The for the most part, they can only move upwards, so to speak, as far as getting better. And I think they can. You know what? They're veteran players, especially Marc Staal is a veteran player, had a fantastic career with the New York Rangers. And, from what I read, part of the Rangers letting him go was to make some, between him and Lundqvist, I guess they freed up over $8 million in salary cap money. So, if it was, mainly, partly because of money and partly because you might have some younger players coming in, whereas the Red Wings need to shore up their defense. And, a guy like Marc Staal, I don't know much about John Merrill, but again, 6'3" defenseman. Bottom line is this, you know what, Steve's not paying a lot of money for these players. He's not giving up, players or having to trade for these players. He's basically getting a bargain deal on a lot of these players he's picking up. So where's the risk? Get them. Mm-hmm. If they fit in, great. If they don't, they don't. It's not causing, not back in the old days. When I turned pro, we used to give up all our young players and trade for older players towards the end of the career, which obviously we know through history is a bad mistake. Stevie's not doing that. He's not giving up youth right now to pick up some older players. He's getting them at a great price, not costing the team much. And you know what? If his scouts do a good job and they watch these guys play in the minors or in the NHL over the past year or so, I believe the scouts told Stevie, hey, these guys, could seriously help our organization in the upcoming season.
Absolutely. Okay, a couple more questions. First, for you, which area do you think needs the most improvement going forward?
Well, I think, you hate to say this, as a forward, I could always make a mistake and, the defenseman would help you out. And if the defenseman made a mistake, you preyed on the goaltender. But unfortunately, goaltenders can't afford to make a mistake. So I think, starting from the net out, I thought goaltending was as a player. And again, I'm not blaming goaltending. Don't get me wrong. Okay. But good goaltending can win games for a hockey club. And, a goaltender can play extremely well, but if they let in that one soft goal, it can help, contribute to demoralizing a team in that game and changing the momentum. So you got to really have consistent goaltending. Obviously defense is huge, and it's not easy these days where, defense game has gotten that much faster. You're not allowed to hook and hold and tug the forwards, slow them down, to keep them coming in at 100 miles an hour to forecheck on the defense. So the defense have to be mobile. They got to be smart, and they got to be able to move the puck. And it's not an easy job back there, but they need a little more consistency there on the defense. They're not bad, don't get me wrong, okay, but they need improvement. And it's just smart hockey, smart NHL hockey, where they get the puck, they move it up to the forwards as quick as possible. Each time you play in your own zone, the better odds, you're going to win hockey games. So, and then of course the forwards, we've got Larkin's line there. We could use a little more consistency. It's always good to have two offensive lines that are offensive threats out there, because it makes it a lot tougher for the other team. They usually has a lot of times has a checking line, and it's tough to check a team that has two good scoring lines. A little more experience up front, a little more consistency, a little more offense, just a lot more intelligent play. If you want to, keep the game simple, move the puck, and as a whole, as a team, they got to play well together. All five guys on the ice, six including the defenseman or the goaltender, obviously. Hey, let's face it, it's always nice to get some new faces in the lineup, because it can be a downer, when, and believe me, I experienced that back in the early 80s, and it can be refreshing. It was refreshing for me when management would try to improve the hockey club, by bringing in some new fresh faces. It just adds a little more juice to the team, so to speak.
Absolutely, because consistency is key, and moving forward, hoping that we have that from the net out, as you said. Okay, and one last question, not the easiest question to answer, especially right now, but being in a rebuild, I know you touched on this a bit earlier, and seeing all the moves being made on this team, how far do you think the Wings are from being a playoff contention team?
My guess isn't like, we talked about earlier, it's a tough question to answer. But again, I'm going to go by history and what general managers usually say, unless I'm dating myself from the 80s and the 90s. But most GMs, when they take over a job, and I believe Yzerman even mentioned this when he first took it over, I believe he's looking for some drastic improvements in his first 3 years. So it's not only having a good team and finishing strong in the lineup, but having a good team that's going to also do well in the playoffs. The thing about the playoffs is, amongst regular season, also, you're only as strong as your weakest link. It takes one bad goal, one bad pinch, one bad play by a forward where they give it away, and man, the momentum can change. So it's not easy to win the Stanley Cup. There's no question about it.
Johnny O, I cannot thank you enough for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk with you yet again.
Well, thank you very much, Carly. And hey, be safe out there, and hopefully we get to see you come December, okay?
Yes, hopefully. Thanks again for being on Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Carly and John. Always great to hear from Johnny O. And now we're going to get right into today's headliner, where Art Regner is joined live with Ken Daniels.
All right. Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner, presented by Miller Lite. Our guest is Ken Daniels, the television play-by-play voice of the Detroit Red Wings. And Ken, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know when we're going to get back to official work, but I really did like your beard. I just want to go on record. I thought the facial hair was a good look for you.
Yeah, thanks, Art. I may at some point want to continue with the goatee and the mustache, just so I can look a little more like John Tortorella. I'm thinking about bringing that back, but the full beard, it just got a little bit itchy. Trying to sleep, couldn't handle it.
Well, when you're in Columbus, you'll never have to pay for a meal with that look. That'll be good.
You know what? Torts is so kind. I already don't have to. He jumped on board, and with the Jamie Daniels Foundation, he's contributed greatly there. So I'm all good with him.
Well, let's get into it. I know tomorrow night's a big night, 8 o'clock on Fox, 90 minutes, the Scotty Bowman roast for the Jamie Daniels Foundation. Ken, the more I read, and I am not exaggerating, I am counting down the seconds until I can watch this thing.
Well, thank you. I hope people will laugh with us, maybe cry with us, but most importantly, they get educated with us about what substance use disorder is. And if we can save one life because we educated someone and they know where to turn, because in 2015 and the year prior to when Jamie passed, before he did so well in sobriety in Florida, before he got patient brokered, and he wanted to get help and he asked to get sober, and that was so important. but we didn't know then what we know now. So if we can pass along that knowledge and people watch this show at 8 o'clock tomorrow night on Fox Sports Detroit, 90 minutes, and it'll be repeated at 9:30, and they learn something and maybe they can pass it along to somebody. Because as we say in the show, Art, we're not asking for sympathy, we're asking for empathy. Do not judge what you think someone with substance use disorder looks like. It's a mental illness, it's a disease, and we hope people will learn what to do and realize you're not alone out there. And Delta Dental, who's been our major sponsor, they've done so much amazing work in the field of dentistry and telling doctors how not to prescribe what they had been prescribing in years previous, that maybe even wisdom teeth coming out, ibuprofen or Tylenol 3 will do just as well as prescribing someone oxycodone. Because Jamie college, because hey, a doctor prescribed it, must be okay, right? Within 5 days, he was addicted. There have to be other options. And during the time of COVID, overdose rates are up 43% because isolation can preclude recovery. And those with substance use disorder need to get out to meetings. They need interaction. They need a social interaction, acclimate back into society. When they can't, you're more prone to use. And that's the problem. So we hope people will learn a lot tomorrow night and laugh a lot, Art.
You said something, a couple of things, really shared a lot of my personal life, but I have lost family members, my sister at 43 years old to addiction. And, you know, my only sibling. So I understand where you're coming through. And during my own journey, because we all go on a journey when you have someone who has a disease, as you say, but you go from all kinds of emotions. You know, you get angry, you don't understand it, you want to grab them and shake them and say, "What do you see what you're doing to yourself? I mean, do you see this? What is going on?" I mean, it's like I said, it's a whole gambit of emotions, but there's two things that I really like. And you did take the word that I was going to say. Disease, which it is, but empathy. You have to have empathy, because if you don't, it's not only going to apart who is battling it, but it also is going to tear you apart.
And you know, Art, empathy is the highest form of knowledge because that comes without judgment. And we didn't know in 2015 when Jamie was going through this, we didn't realize what that was. And unfortunately, what we know now, we wish that we knew then. We said, just stop, dude. But no, the glutamate receptors in your brain change. You can't. And the thought when someone has already used or becomes addicted that quickly from maybe the doctor prescribed him, you can't get off, because when you want to detox, when you want to get clean and you say to yourself, stop, your brain says, no, I can't. I don't want the worst flu-like symptoms and sickness that you've ever had in your life. I don't want to feel like that. So the brain says, well, keep using. You won't feel like that. And that's why they can't stop. Back in the 80s when the Reagan said, say no to drugs, they were right. Say no to drugs. It's a lot more complicated than just saying no.
Right, because if you don't say no, and if you can't say no, and you know, saying no is a lot easier said than done, unfortunately.
Right.
Let's you know, everyone will get educated. Ken, I've told you this. I've told you privately. I keep telling you every time you're on the Word on Woodward. I mean, what you have done, how you have turned on the most horrific thing that could ever happen to a child, and the way that you have turned this into something where your son's legacy will live forever. I do compliment you on that. And I want to know exactly, tell us some of the fun things that that people will experience as they watch this roast of Scotty Bowman.
Well, you hear Scotty Bowman's rebuttal on the roast to the host, the former Hockey Night in Canada host, Dave Hodge. The roast portion will be interspersed throughout the 90-minute show that starts at 8 o'clock on Fox Sports Detroit. And also you can watch it on foxsports.com/Detroit or search Jamie Daniels Foundation Roast on YouTube. So Dennis Hull, Bobby's brother, Brett's uncle, one of the after dinner speakers, and we wish he went longer, because when we recorded this, you know, you're tight for time. Dennis thought he went longer than he did, and he didn't. We wish he would have done longer, but his little bit is funny. And Jerry D, who's basically the Steve Harvey of Canada, he hosts Family Feud Canada, had a show Jerry D did playing a school for many years on CBC. And Ian Bagg, who's very funny, he roasted Mickey Redmond last year at our live event at Motor City Casino that we hope to be live again next year, August 28th. And Scotty's rebuttal to those four is remarkable. Scotty just turned 87, and of course Ian Bagg takes shots at Scotty about his age. So that'll be throughout the show. Jack Nicklaus did a wonderful bit to Scotty Bowman. The funny thing was, as Jack's speaking, I showed it to a buddy of mine a while ago, and he heard Jack's bit. I played it for him. He goes, "Oh my God, I thought Jack was having a stroke," because he goes off in all these different directions about Bowman, but it's very funny. So Jack Nicklaus, you'll hear. Nick Lidstrom does a wonderful bit. Red Berenson as well. Stu Grimson, hilarious. Mitch Albom tells a great Scotty story. Dick Vitale. And after Dave Hodge, by the way, sort of does the goodbyes at the end of the show, there's still more to come, including Brendan Shanahan, including Dick Vitale, and look, Jeff Daniels. Well, Jeff Daniels, the great actor that he is, just plays that one perfectly. Ken Dryden telling us what we all know about Scotty, but in a funny way. Brendan Shanahan you'll hear from, although Brendan really didn't roast Scotty, he more or less toasted him, as did Darren McCarty. You'll hear from Jim Leland, Dominic Hasek, very brief, and yet so Dominic Hasek, Doc Emmerich, Jimmy Devellano. You'll hear from all of them. Glenn Hall, who played for Scotty with the St. Louis Blues when they came in as expansion team in 1967. You'll hear from online virtually is a little bit different, but the show on TV, almost the same, wherever you're tuning in, Fox Sports Detroit televised or foxsports.com/Detroit or jamiedanielsfoundation.org or YouTube, and a special performance from Stephen Page, the former lead singer of the Bare Naked Ladies. You remember the song The Apartment, Brian Wilson, all those. Stephen Page has been in recovery too, and a wonderful guy, and now the Stephen Page Trio, and he did a beautiful song called Looking for the Light, which just speaks to recovery, where we'll acknowledge the sponsors there, and there have been so many, and we'll acknowledge Jamie's life with photos and video, and it's just a beautiful bit within the show. So we've got so much. It's a roast, it's a toast, and it's education. And I hope people will stay with us for the whole 90 minutes. There's a silent auction throughout the show right now. There are amazing silent auction items, Art, as you know, trip to Costa Rica, to Alaska. Alaska Airlines came on with tickets for us. There's game-used hockey sticks from Connor McDavid and Alex Ovechkin, etc. There's a Dylan Larkin jersey, a Bertuzzi jersey, Mantha Datsuk. There's so much stuff on there, golf trips, food. Please go to jamiedanielsfoundation.org right now, and it's live until noon on Thursday. You can sign up on your mobile phone, all there at jamiedanielsfoundation.org. So important for us to save lives, build long-term, safe, sober housing that we need so badly here in Michigan, as well as continuing our collegiate recovery program, which is done so well at Michigan State.
Well, it sounds absolutely wonderful, Ken. I know the silent auction runs through Thursday, right? Everybody, if you have to get your bid in,
Thursday at noon. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great. I can't wait. Wednesday, and I know from Fox Sports with all the pre-draft shows, this isn't a one-time thing. I know it's going to be repeated at 9:30, but you're going to see this a lot on Fox Sports Detroit. It's going to be repeated many, many times. Something pressing tomorrow night, you'll still be able to see it and still be able to get involved. It just doesn't stop tomorrow.
Right. And because it's online on YouTube, it'll live there. It'll live on our foundation site at jamiedanielsfoundation.org, on Fox Sports site as well. And after, when it runs many times, it'll be a 60-minute show because we got to take the auction part out, because by the time it runs again, the auction will close. So Alex Asaf at Fox Sports Detroit, and Jeff, who's done the editing, and Ken Vance with graphics. Fox Sports has done such a wonderful job. I'm so proud of the work that all these folks did, not only cutting a virtual show, cutting a 90-minute show, and then cutting that to a 60-minute show as well, that will hopefully run in Canada on Sportsnet in November, and we're hoping for other spots. They have just worked and showing me as I went along. I've stayed out of it, and we put the pieces together where, again, so many people who've done these video tributes, and I had to reach out to so many people who reached out to people who just helped. I couldn't get everybody, but we got a lot of folks to come on board, and we couldn't be prouder of it.
Well, let's now, again, I can't wait for it. I think it's great. I compliment you, your whole staff, everybody there. The Daniels Foundation. Those safe houses are going to be built, Ken. I know they are, and I think that is going to be absolutely tremendous. It's always an awkward transition, but let's talk a little bit about the Red Wings. I know that when we were doing the Fox Sports Detroit post-draft show, we were talking about defensemen the Red Wings may sign, and you said, "How about Troy Stetcher from Vancouver?" And I said, "I like that move." And boom, they signed him. Your thoughts on what Steve was able to pull off the last couple of days?
Well, I think getting Troy Stetcher is a terrific find for Detroit. He'd be a solid 5 or 6 on really any team in the National Hockey League. Yeah, you can talk about the Red Wings have a deficiency on the blue line. Well, sure they do. But look who they lost, and now you look at the rebuild of what they managed to do, and it's a nice 2-year deal at 1.7 for Troy. Philip Peronic already there. Gustav Lindstrom, perhaps. You got Alex Viega as an extra guy. And you look at the left side, when you get back Danny DeKeyser, that's like finding another guy. And we hope that the back is healthy. You've added Marc Staal again for 1 year. You add John Merrill in the mix. All of a sudden, this is a pretty good Sable defense. And when you've got Jonathan Bernier and Thomas Greiss back there, Merrill wanted to play here, right? Merrill played for Little Caesars. He wanted to come back to Detroit. When you got guys like him, and then you got Bobby Ryan up for come to Detroit, they want to be part of this. Vlad Nemesnikov, Uncle Slava Kozlov, who was here, and he grew up here. So it's enticing not just original 6, but you want to be part of this. That's what, when a team is rebuilding the way Detroit was, and you got to think, Art, with a more veteran team, you don't have to throw the kids in now. And what might wind up being just a game season, and with solid goaltending from Greiss and Bernier, let's say it's a 60-game season or 68-game season and it's shorter, and you got a veteran presence to hold the forts. You're not being shelled all night long. 7 times when the Red Wings lost 4 or more games in a row last season isn't going to happen again. These guys can stop the bleeding. So how many more points are they going to get? I don't know. But if it's a shorter season and they did what they did last year, and you can tack on a lot of teams a lot of problems. I'm not saying it's a playoff team, but boy, in a shortened season, could there be some surprises if Greiss plays like he did? And yes, he was behind an Islander team that was good. I get that. But his save percentage numbers were good, right? That's the bottom line. Save percentage numbers were good, and Bernier was terrific. Red Wings could surprise a lot of teams in a way and play big-time spoiler. Maybe not ready to win to get to that point yet, but they've taken great strides in what Steve's managed to do, what they've moved out, and what they've brought in. This team looks a whole lot different and may continue to be before we finally get going.
Right. I will go out on a limb here. They're going to win more than 17 games. I will say that. I will say that. I think they're going
so too.
to. You know me, man. I'm bold. Yeah, I think they'll win more than 17. Real quickly, because I know we're going to be on the Fox special together. But your thoughts quickly on the draft. The 12 new prospects coming in. Lucas Raymond. The more I think about it, the more I like it. Ken, what is your thoughts?
Well, you can't help but like it because they need scoring, right? So if you get scoring in Lucas Raymond, that's what you wanted. I think Wallinder on the back end, from the more people I speak with, they really, really like him. And that's why that number 32 pick, as we spoke to Steve, probably there are a lot of teams that wanted it, but he decided to keep it. Nothing interested him enough. So obviously that was the guy that they wanted. So I like it. It could be that power play guy, run at half wall. I mean, he's a guy who can do that. So there's a lot of players they picked up there, and the veteran guys that they've added now, even on the short-term deals, and will continue to add, it buys these guys time that all of a sudden when you're ready in 3 or 4 years, away they come to fill in just underneath. And what he did in free agency, it looks terrific. And I don't know if they're necessarily done yet, Art, because they've got lots of cap room left, and they can certainly add to what they've built already.
Well, yeah, certainly. I agree with you. And then, Theodore Niederbach, here was a guy that if he wasn't hurt and had to sit out basically a whole season, that he may have also gone into the first potential first round pick. He's done nothing but tear it up since he's come back from injury. So if you look at it, it kind of reminds me of the draft a few years ago where they were able to get Zadina, Veleno, Berggren, and McIsaac. And McIsaac and Berggren all came in the second round, where the Red Wings felt at that point they had gotten 4 first-round draft choices. Who knows? Maybe their top 3 could have all gone into the first round. So, I mean, a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed with how Steve is transforming this team.
You know what? And Niederbach, who you just mentioned there's a power play guy, whether he's in Sweden behind the net or the half wall. His skating, they say, is one thing he has to work on, but he did have a knee injury. So who knows? I remember a guy who they said his skating wasn't great. And I know when they drafted him, it was probably the 3rd round, I guess, in Tampa Bay, when Steve and Pat Verbeek and Al Murray drafted a guy by the name of Braden Point. His skating apparently wasn't very good either. They had to work with his ankles. They had to get him a little better. They got him a whole lot better. And look how great Braden Point is now. So I don't think Steve Yzerman and company are worried. They see the IQ. They see that. And that's one guy, Niederbach, is a puck distributor and what he can do. So again, it's going to take time. There's no rush for the Raymonds. Maybe he's in a year from now. Who knows? But again, with Larkin and Mantha and Bertuzzi and Fabry and Zadina, you've got that there. And now you add in Nemesnikov, and Bobby Ryan buys time. And you add some more free agents maybe a year from now until those kids come through. You're building the right way. Steve preached patience day one. We got to have that patience, but it's not as far off as we think, because the rebuild really, for all intents and purposes, is what, into year 3 or 4 now, in all honesty. So, you know, the next 4 years, and you get that group that we're drafting now ready to go. That's how you build.
Well, it certainly is, and I'm pretty eager. I'm eager for the season to start, and Ken, I'm eager to see the roast of Scotty Bowman tomorrow for the Jamie Daniels Foundation. Tomorrow night, Fox Sports Detroit. It debuts at 8 o'clock. Ken, it's always a pleasure. Really, really, really appreciate your time. Best of luck, and we will talk very, very soon. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Big thanks to our presenting sponsor, Delta Dental, and all our sponsors, and to everyone who's going to watch tomorrow and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. That'll do it for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. It is the original light beer. It's only 96 calories. It tastes delicious, and it's available for delivery. Daniela, Ken Daniels, I'm looking forward to this roast tomorrow. And Scotty, I can't wait to hear Scotty's rebuttal. That, to me, is probably going to end up being the highlight.
This roast, it is going to be hilarious. You heard some of the big name guests that are going to be on there, and it's just going to be great. So make sure you are tuning in tomorrow on Fox Sports Detroit. Right now, we're going to get into Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. And of course, Carly Johnston is joining us for this one. Carly, what's going on in the social media world right now?
Thanks, Danielle. We're going to start off with just a couple questions and then have some fun after that. Okay, first question is up. Daniela. All right, Daniela, do you think we will see any offer sheets for some RFAs? That is a question that I got on my Instagram page. Just wondering what.
Interesting. I don't think so, but correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. I think it's only Anthony Mantha, Tyler Bertuzzi, and then Dmytro Timashov are the only restricted free agents that are left for the Red Wings to either come to deals with or not, correct? I think those are the only 3. Maybe. Art, do you know?
I'm sorry. I thought you were asking that question to yourself. Yes.
All right, good. I just want to make sure.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
you guys are no. Thank you.
Sounds good to me, Danielle. All the way. Yeah, sure.
Whatever.
I was like, where's she going? No?
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that correct, because those are the 3 that I remember being no deals on yet. Adam Erving got a deal. Carl Hirose got a deal. Yes. So, okay, those 3 are the only ones that do not have deals yet. And I know no knock on Timashov, but everyone's focusing on Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi and where those deals are going to go. I don't want to say it's impossible that we will see an offer sheet, because anything is possible. And as Art said earlier, we never say never around here, especially with what's going on with Steve Yzerman. But what he did say yesterday in his press conference is that he's confident, still confident, that deals are going to get done with Tyler Bertuzzi and Anthony Mantha, even though Tyler Bertuzzi did file for salary arbitration. He's still confident that they're going to be Red Wings. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to guess no. Again, I don't think it's impossible, but I don't think we're going to see offer sheets. And I think both Tyler Bertuzzi and Anthony Mantha are going to come to an agreement with the Red Wings. Again, as Steve Yzerman said yesterday, both sides in both of those deals want to come to an agreement. So I think they will.
I don't doubt that for a second. I can't imagine those two players being anywhere else. All right, question for Art. I like this one. What does Art love about Thomas Greiss? So I want to know what your infatuation is with Greiss in that.
Well, because I am so shallow, I don't, I'm mostly Greek, and I know I talk about that incessantly, but my last name is German. Greiss is a German. So of course I got to stand up for the old fatherland there, but all kidding aside, I think that Thomas Greiss goalies come at different times. And I believe that, good hockey left in him. It was kind of he hasn't played an awful lot of hockey. I'll give you kind of what they said about Max Scherzer. Remember, Max Scherzer did not have a lot of innings on his arm when he was younger. So at 27, 28, 29, he started to reach his peak, and he's able to pitch into his 30s, which doesn't happen a lot, especially, a starting pitch. So I guess my point with Greiss is that I think Greiss has a lot of hockey. I think he's big. I think he moves well side to side. I think he has a great glove hand. He can move the puck. So I think he's a little bit of a complete package. And I think he's going to really, complement Jonathan Bernier in a good way. Now, I'll be interesting to see how the goalies mesh. The interesting thing about goaltenders is there's only two of them on an NHL roster. And even though they're in competition, they're the only ones that can empathize with what the other guy is going through because they play the same position. So you have to be able not only to play well and push each other in a good way, but you also have to be able to get along. And, obviously Jimmy Howard and Jonathan Bernier, and Jimmy got along well with all his partners. For the most part, the Red Wing room was always that way, whether it was Dom and Ozzy or whomever, Mike Vernon. You need a negative, because I don't think it's a problem per se, is that Bernier and Greiss are going to have to form a partnership and a friendship and a healthy competition towards one another. So I think that will be the biggest adjustment he may have to make, getting used to a goaltending partner. But when it comes to the ice, Thomas Greiss, I have no problem with him. I just thought when you looked at it and where the Red Wings are at, he is, I think, the best goalie for themselves in right now. A 2-year deal. Obviously he's a goaltender, so you pay him a little bit more. And then with Jonathan Bernier, who's in the last year of his deal, so he's going to want to play well. And Greiss, looks at this as a starting opportunity. Again, if I can, and I'll settle down here for a second. The one thing that Steve has created on this roster is competition on the roster. Competition for playing time. And, and I think you both have heard me say this. Some of the best hockey I've ever seen were in those Red Wing teams in their heyday, when they were just like the best team in the league, along with Colorado. But is that because guys were playing for jobs? So they had to go out there and they practiced really hard. I mean, it was incredible, the hockey that I saw, just the Red Wings competing against each other to see if they could stay in the lineup. And I think, and Steve, I think that's what he's kind of done here. I think he has brought in a plethora of talent so much, but guys are going to be competing for jobs on the Red Wings. That's going to make them a better team. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
All right. Love it. All right. Last but not least, we have a post. By the way, Art, that interview you did with Ken Daniels was absolutely beautiful. That was an incredible interview. But I wanted to, speaking of him, bring this up. So I think the Detroit Red Wings are gearing up for their dog calendar. So that was Ken Daniels, Mickey Rehmann, and their 2 dogs in the radio booth, which was amazing. You love to see it. Nothing cuter than dogs. Our viewership definitely just went up when you get dogs on camera. I mean, come on. But again, Art, beautiful interview you had with Ken Daniels. That was amazing. I really enjoyed listening to it. I'm really looking forward to the roast of Scotty Bowman, which again is on Fox Sports Detroit tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I will definitely be tuning in. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited for it.
I definitely.
I'm recording it too.
Oh, look at you.
The only problem is I'm going to record that silent auction part. I'm going to be bidding on items that are already going to be taken. A week from now, I'll be calling out. I want that jersey. God doggone it! What do you mean?
Yeah, that'll last for tomorrow. So you guys make sure you're watching it live if you want to partake in that silent auction. Art, I know you'll be watching it live and recording it. So
you bet. Oh, you know me too well there, Carly.
I do. I know your love for the Red Wings and for Scotty Bowman. Again, that's on Fox Sports Detroit at 8 p.m. But that's all I have for now. And I think it's time that we wrap things up, Daniela.
Thank you, Carly. Yes, it is that time. That does it for today's Let's Socialize presented by AAA. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. As mentioned, you guys, make sure you are tuning into the roast of Scotty Bowman in honor of the Jamie Daniels Foundation taking place tomorrow on Fox Sports Detroit starting at 8 p.m. You can watch that for the live silent auction as well. And if you missed anything in today's Word on Woodward, you can catch it on our YouTube channel, or you can listen to the show as a podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts. Again, that is the Word on Woodward on YouTube, or the Word on Woodward as a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Word on Woodward presented by Rehmann. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys on Thursday right here at noon.